Welcome on back to the channel, folks. Let's talk Knicks versus Pistons. And this one might actually end up being one of my favorite series here in this first round of the 2025 NBA playoffs. I think the other series I'm going to really enjoy is going to be the Clippers versus the Nuggets, which I really didn't think I was going to be the case, but I could totally tell where that series is going. And that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But this one will be really fun too. And that's because you have two very interesting teams with some interesting dynamics. Detroit Pistons, the young up-and-comers, a lot of people believe that their inexperience will be an obstacle for them to overcome. And then for the Knicks, will they beat a team that they're supposed to, that they're favored to win in this series? But what are you going to get from, the Knicks? It depends on two main players, I think. And it's going to be the effectiveness of Jalen Brunson as the leader, and I think the offensive abilities of Karl Anthony Towns. And by the way, guys, the moments that you guys see from this guy, I see it too. Offensively, he really is something unique, right? This guy is a legitimately sized NBA center with very, very good skills, good movement, incredible shooting ability, anywhere past half court. Like, this guy can actually make that shot. And Jalen Brunson, I think the slashing, the capability to penetrate, break down defenses, and his shooting. There's a couple things about Brunson's game I want to discuss, and I think the Pistons are going to make some adjustments, but this series is going to be good. All right, so let's talk about the game. So the Knicks open up the game in a way that indicates that this is going to be a dogfight, right? Knicks Pistons. The Pistons are tough. They've got a tough coach. They've got a tough roster. They've got a tough leader, an emerging leader in Cade Cunningham. And the surrounding pieces are like-minded. And they got some good games out of some guys. I'm looking at the box scores. The Knicks shot the ball a little bit better. The Pistons actually shot the three ball a little bit better. I think that might be something that they actually have to exploit and do a little bit more of. And I'm going to explain more on that later in the video. Free throws, not that different, right? Knicks took 20 attempts, 17 attempts. The Pistons took 20. Rebounding edge, it was really, really close. The offensive glass, the Pistons did a little bit better. But you look at the points in the paint, and the Pistons are going to have to address that. They really are going to have to fix that problem, and then they've got to take care of the ball. When I look at this game and the outcome, inexperience was definitely a factor, because the first half, these teams weren't really separated by much. I think it was a 2-point game in favor of the Knicks at halftime. And then the Pistons came out in the third quarter and actually outscored the Knicks by 10 in the third frame. So the Pistons were doing just fine. It was in the fourth quarter where things kind of sort of fell apart for the Pistons defensively, giving up 40 points in the fourth frame. That really, really hurts. If I'm JD Bickerstaff, if I'm the coaching staff that's putting together game plan for game 2, I'm looking at the film from the fourth quarter specifically and saying, how did we fall apart defensively that we allowed the Knicks to score 40 points in the fourth quarter of an NBA playoff game in which your defense is supposed to tighten up in those really prime time spots? So that's going to have to get addressed. I think defensive matchups, I think defensive discipline. I saw Cade pick up some really tic-tacky fouls throughout the game. There's things that the Pistons are going to have to fix. But guys, don't get it twisted. This series is not going to be easy work for the Knicks. These Pistons played 3 incredible quarters of basketball in which they were going toe-to-toe with the New York Knicks, who are favored in the series. In fact, through the first 3 quarters, the Pistons outplayed the Knicks. That fourth frame was a backbreaker. And you could see it in some of the different parts of the game. Like Tobias Harris had 25 points. That's a welcome sight because you need scoring from guys that are other than Cade, right? As incredible as Cade Cunningham is, you're going to need other guys to step up. Tim Hardaway Jr., nice job getting 19 points. I think Asar Thompson might have to have a more prominent role if they're going to win this series. Malik Beasley was fantastic coming off the bench, 20 points, 6 of 12 from 3. We know his abilities as a marksman from distance. But I do think that when I look at like Jalen Duren, for example, who throughout the year has been a huge piece of their success. You're just going to have to get a little bit more from him. But in the fourth frame, you cannot give up 40 points. The Pistons are going to have to fix and address those defensive lapses in that quarter. And then offensively, they didn't have it going either. They only scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. So the Knicks were able to kind of put the stranglehold on the Pistons. I think that is the experience piece. I think it's the fact that the Pistons don't really know. They don't know those feelings. They don't know those emotions. They don't have that connection, previous experiences, to playing in the Madison Square Garden during the playoffs in hostile territory. But there's some bright spots there, like Malik Beasley and his three-point shooting. The fact that it traveled to Madison Square Garden, he's going to be a huge part of the reason the Pistons can win games in the series. And if the Pistons are going to upset the Knicks, he's going to be a big part of that reason. But yeah, they're just going to have to play better in that fourth frame. I think defensively, they're just going to have to be better. And they're going to make some adjustments. I mean, look at what the Knicks got from their main guys. Josh Hart, 13, you'll take it. Jalen Brunson, 34 points, 8 of 10 from the free throw line. Karl-Anthony Towns, 23 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. That is a monster game from Karl-Anthony Towns. OG got 23 points, 3 of 8 from 3, 14 off the bench for Campaign. Probably the reason the Knicks won this game. I think Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, that's your expectation. OG's kind of their third option offensively. So you got what you normally got from them, but it was Campaign. 14 points off the bench, 3 of 5 from 3. That's probably why the Knicks won. I don't know if Campaign's capable of doing that 2 or 3 times in an NBA playoff series. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen him do that collectively in a series. But if he does continue to perform, the Knicks are probably going to win the series because they've just got more guys than the Pistons that are difference makers offensively. I still think that the Pistons have a chance in the series. The Pistons just don't have the experience, and that's what you saw in Game 1. But they're going to take something away from this game. They're going to watch the film. They're going to see what they were able to do in the first and second quarters, and very specifically quarter number 3. They're going to parlay that into the things they want to focus on and do more of the rest of the series. But don't sleep on the Pistons. They're not out of this yet. I don't want people to just bail on them. Yeah, I get it. The Knicks clearly dominated that fourth quarter. But if you're a Knicks fan, and if you're the Knicks, for 3 quarters, you were outplayed by the inexperienced Pistons. And the Pistons now have one game of experience, that quarter, that fourth quarter, where they can learn some things from it. I still think the Pistons are dangerous, and I think the New York Knicks should be very careful with them. The Pistons, if they were to win Game 2, I think this series is going to go, for the duration of it, I think it's going to go 7 games. And I think the Pistons are still a very difficult matchup for the New York Knicks. They have to be careful and take these guys very seriously. The Pistons win Game 2. This one's going to be a long one.